this month's July 6th Planning Commission meeting. Like we're all good on the technology side. Thank you, Mark. We'll start with a roll call for attendance. Mark?
Tom Aden. Sam Battle.
Here.
Barry Hubbard.
Here.
Chad Schneider. Dawn Calvert.
Here.
Mayor Whitfield.
Here.
Derek Tedrow.
So we do have a quorum and one absence. Secretary Ballard, have you heard anything from Mr. Schneider about
No, I
attendance
have
today?
not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll look to see Chad join in some form or fashion. We'll start with an approval of the minutes from the June meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Battle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hubbard. And is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, we have 3 public hearings today. The first one is for Elyria Budget Auto Sales on 590 Cleveland Street, Elyria, Ohio. A request, a rezone of said parcels. 115 Longfellow Street, Elyria, Ohio, 44035, from residential to household district to business general district. We'll start with staff. Yeah, we'll start with the staff report. Mr. Farkas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The request is, the proponent is requesting the parcel listed be rezoned from residential to household district, RTH, to a business general district, BG, in efforts to expand the current/adjacent car lot auto sales establishment, AKA Budget Auto. Findings. RTH current use. The parcels listed in the proponent's request is currently zoned residential to household district, RTH, the requirements of which can be found in Chapter 1148 of the Elyria Codified Ordinance. It is a purpose of the residential to household district to establish and maintain high-quality areas within the city for 2 household dwellings with a high population density, to preserve existing residential neighborhoods characterized by both single and 2 household residences. The principally permitted uses are as follows: educational institutions, group homes, as regulated in Section 1137.10, non-commercial recreation, religious places of worship, single household detached dwellings, 2 household dwellings, and any permitted uses that are customary and incidental to the use described herein. BG, the proposed use. The requirements of business general can be found in the Elyria Codified Ordinance, Chapter 1160. It is the purpose of a BG district to provide a wide variety of needs for both conveniences and more common and often reoccurring shopping goods, household services. The principally permitted uses include allied health facilities, automotive sales, child care facilities, clubs, commercial recreation, commercial schools, convenience businesses, dental and medical clinics, drive-in facilities, educational institutions, fast food restaurants, financial institutions, government buildings, health unit offices, hospitals, hotels, motels, kennels, etc. Note, this parcel listed formerly had a residential home located on the site and was demolished in and around 2009. Since that time, the grading has been raised and the soil has been covered/converted to a gravel surface for the parking of vehicles prior to any approval by the engineering or zoning departments. The site has been a continual nuisance to adjoining property owners, resulting in multiple complaints filed with the building department. As a result of the complaints filed for this site, a notice of violation with a correction order was issued on 10/14/20, Elyria Codified Ordinance Section 117503, as a gravel surface and ultimate use parking auto sales was not permitted for the current zoning district, RTH. The owner subsequently pursued a variance request via the local Board of Zoning and Appeals for the gravel surface for parking of the vehicles in an RTH. The request was unanimously denied, case number 2020-14, held on December 3rd, 2020. I have attached the board's decision letter in the packet. I'm not sure if you guys have that. I've also included some photos of which depict the complainant's concerns that show the gravel surface and subsequent washout onto the public sidewalk for the subject property. Staff recommendations. The above information listed herein is for the board's use and consideration, as the board must weigh the requirements currently established in the pre-existing abutting residential district in regards to the limited uses permitted, as a zoning change, if approved, would allow any permitted use in a business general district in the future. If the board approves the rezoning request, RTH to BG, it is not intended to negate the need for an approved dust-free surface, concrete or blacktop, being required for the parking of vehicles or other proposed use, as required by Elyria Codified Ordinance Section 1175.08. As referenced in Section 1160.10 of the Business General Requirements, the new zoning classification would also evoke engineering approval, screening regulations, and design review requirements for a new commercial zoning classification parking area. In closing, I am not in favor of this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. And if you could just, in summary, what is your primary concern with the rezone here?
This structure, this lot at one time had a residential house. It was demolished some time ago and was converted to gravel area. We have received multiple complaints from the neighbor over the years of the grade being raised much higher than the adjacent property. I've included some of the photos in the packet. I'm not sure if you guys have that.
Yeah, I was going to pull those
And
up. That was,
the gravel washout was, when it rains in a heavy downpour, would actually take the gravel that's installed and put it right over the sidewalk, making it a trip hazard, and especially for a person with disabilities in a wheelchair, very difficult to maneuver. The concern also, if this were installed, would have cars right up against the property line, right very close to the sidewalk, and could be detrimental to people backing out of that proposed lot if approved.
thank you, Mr. Farkas. Any other questions for the staff? And then we'll open it up for proponents and opponents.
I guess I'd just be curious, if it was zoned business, would we still have the opportunity to address the concerns with the gravel and those sorts of things? That seems independent of its use, but more how it's been improved presently?
If it's zoned business general, the business general district will require an approved dust-free surface, concrete or blacktop. So if approved by the board, they would still have to come back and install an approved surface that would trigger the design review process for screening and fencing, and also Mr. Schneider from water discharge runoff.
Mr. Farkas, have there been complaints about the commercial aspect of it, or have the complaints been limited to the gravel?
As of the most recent complaint, it was twofold: the grade change and the proposed use as a car lot, so yes.
And Mr. Farkas, I was able to pull up the images that you had in your report. Are there certain ones you want me to point to?
I'll try to stop back right there, Mayor. The
Okay.
sidewalk, you can see. That is to show that it is not.
Mhm.
From the sidewalk, looking at the. And my writing showing the different vacant lots.
Any other questions for the staff? If not, we'll open it up to any proponents. Any proponents?
Morning, Mr. Mayor, and all the commission members. My name is Jeffrey Smith. It's my pleasure to represent Bruce Charabshin here, who is the owner of the property. First of all, I want to thank you for your time and consideration, and also for your time and continuing this because we were unable to come to the last meeting. The first point I think I need to make is that without the proper approvals, there hasn't been much that he can do with regard to the property. And I think the most important thing to remember is that with the zoning change, which is only a small parcel, 7,200 square feet, that by putting it into the commercial status, that anything built on this property will be subject to both site plan review and design review. In other words, it will have to, everything that's there will have to be according to what is allowed pursuant to the code. Plans will have to be made, the property will be upgraded, it will be done according to the city codes that way. Another important aspect of this project is the extension of security, of neatness and cleanness to the area. The security and the cameras that are on the parking lot will be sure to watch over the area, the adjoining orders directly across the street, and I would indicate for the record, and only for the record, that if you saw that one picture, there was a brand new concrete parcel or concrete entranceway. That part of that property is already zoned commercial, where that new concrete was. So you're only talking about 65 feet, which would be dead north of the concrete that was shown in the picture. So security, neatness, cleanliness will all be improved with this. Another aspect I think that's important is that in the future, the city needs to consider exactly what type of corridor they're going to want in this entire area from Abbey Road to, say, Smitty's or the post office. The area has very different setbacks, to very different zoning in those areas, and what are these? Okay, I got distracted by that, I'm sorry. Very different areas up and down the street. Bruce's have been in business in this area for over 25 years. He did have a house there that was rented, but the house became dilapidated upon the property, and rather than continue with the dilapidated property, he decided to tear it down in order to make for a better place. It will be very clean, neat and clean. And the other thing to know is that currently there are 6 families that rely upon this business for their well-being. You're going to, with this improvement, improve the value of the property, increase property taxes, which increases income for the city. It also increases the amount of money that the school board will receive. It's very minor in the addition that's going to be extended there. And he's obviously been in some disputes with regard to this for a while now. And this was done in order to correct the disputes, move the project forward, and get it finished off in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the proponent? I guess one of my questions is just in regards to the residents' complaints, and how have you addressed those and come up with a plan to mitigate the complaints that they've had?
Well, the first thing that's going to happen is obviously he's going to try to get the property paved. Once you pave it, engineering gets involved, looks at the plans. That will take care of any runoff, any problems that way. Again, it's a minor situation. When it comes to the car lot itself, I don't think that was the major. That was, the zoning change was not the major problem all along. Apparently, once they cleaned it off and it began to have some runoff, that sounds like what was really the main problem. And again, Mayor, I think I would reiterate to you that the ability for the city to control this going forward, not only in terms of Bruce, but any other business that might end up in this property in 15 to 20 years when it comes to site plan review, design review, colors, all of those things. and the ability to have engineering take care of a site plan, make sure that it works right for the city. So I think that's probably, and that's what I started out with, the most important thing is that, again, he had a house, it was becoming dilapidated, and decided to not have that here in the city. And it's a much better in terms of the income for city and the schools.
Any questions from the panel? Are there, thank you, sir, thank you. Are there any other proponents, any other proponents? Any other proponents? Are there any opponents, any opponents? I know Mr. Farkas, you mentioned that you had received some, was that communication to you from the residents on the complaints, or who took that in those, the feedback from the residents?
We received complaints via phone call, and they were entered into our computer system, and they have been continual for quite a few years.
So again, we'll open up to the panel to get some feedback from you all. We have some resident concerns here. It sounds like our staff is recommending not approving. They've gone to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Jim, did you want to speak to that at all, on the zoning appeals at all? So I just wanted to hear anything from the panel, your thoughts, Tom, Mr. Battle, Derek, Barry.
I mean, from what's been presented, it appears that the major concerns are the paving, which would be no more or less addressed by whether there's a zoning change. If anything, it might give us a little bit more control if it was zoned. It's difficult without having the opponent here to really understand maybe the nature of their concerns. But at least as presented, it sounds like the biggest concern from the building department anyways is the gravel on the ground there, which probably needs to be addressed either way, from what I'm understanding.
Yep, Mr. Farkas.
If I may, the complaints and concerns are twofold. One is the gravel that was added after the house was demolished, and two was the use of the lot for auto sales. As it stands now, the lot cannot be used for auto sales. If zoned business general, it will be. Then the next phase, of course, is doing an approved paved surface in that area. John, would you have any comments regarding the grade change based on the photos, just for the board's use?
Sure. I also in the past have heard drainage complaints from the neighboring property to the north. One of the improvements I would require would be to curb the entire northern and along that sidewalk. So, I mean, the grade change is pretty drastic. It can be mitigated with curbs and proper drainage and proper engineering, requirements. But as far as the drainage, we can take care of the drainage one way or the other. I don't think it's insurmountable, but there would be possibly some retention required and things of that nature. But
And as you mentioned, Mr. Hubbard, I think one of my questions for Mr. Farkas or Mr. Schneider, even Jim, is our voting today is about zoning, and should this land be able to be used for the purposes laid out in the business general? And these other concerns are really addressed in design review and other aspects. This doesn't really, impact the paving and whatnot. So if the concern, so let's put the paving thing to the side. The other concern being around auto sales and it getting closer into the neighborhood of this sort of operation, I think that might be our principal thing we're voting on right now. Do we feel comfortable with this? Encroachment is a strong word to use, but this sort of encroachment onto this neighborhood, I'm trying to get to the long field, as we're, are we comfortable with this starting to encroach more into that neighborhood? Because it's not just about what they're going to do right now. As someone mentioned before, it's about 10 years from now, 5 years from now. Are we comfortable starting to move in that direction? And will the residents, appreciate it and be taken care of?
Mr. Farkas, the building immediately to the east, are you aware of what that zoning is?
Mayor, if you could please scroll back to my memo where I show the zoning districts on the map there. Oh, you just passed it. right there. Those lots I've labeled Business General, that is to the south. To the east is Business Neighborhood. To the northeast is Business Neighborhood. To the west is Residential 2-Household District. And the lot, the last parcel 209 is the one in question. That is RTH, as is everything to the north and northwest.
It appears that there's another parcel almost behind this one in question, or to the east of it, if I'm looking at that right. What is that zone? No, I'm looking at, there looks like there's a narrow strip of land, or am I missing that? That guy right there.
That is also BN business.
So we're talking a portion, so only a portion of the neighboring property here is currently residential. The back half or back third is already business.
The parcel directly to the north, I can't read the number, I think it's 208, where the existing resident, yes, that one there is currently Residential 2-Household District, and that is the complainant's home. That is a person making the noise. The lots directly to the south, the one subject 209, and I think the one to the right of that, I can't make out the number, those areas here would be an increase from the photo the mayor had on the Google. It's all blacktop. If I understand it correctly, if this were resurfaced, all that area would now be sloping that way towards that neighbor's house, which I think was one of their original concerns.
Right, but from a use perspective or a zoning perspective, the eastern half or eastern third of that is already business neighborhood you're leaving. I don't see that one marked in your.
No, that one is, they shared, per my county research, as business neighborhood. So this is again with our diverse zoning, it's right next door business neighborhood. This RTH abuts a business neighborhood, and then to the south, a business general, and across the street, 2-household. And again, as mentioned, if permitted to be a BG, it would not only allow an automotive sale, as the mayor had mentioned, but any other use described in the business general.
Barry, go ahead. Go ahead, Don.
Sorry, I was going to ask Mr. Smith, is it anticipated that daily operations will change as a result of this rezoning?
No, not at all. What are your hours?
We work Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and Saturday, 9 to 5.
So 9 to 6, Monday through Friday will remain, and Saturday 9 to 5. It's, I mean, again, this is a very small parcel there that's next to this, and if you look over, this is the driveway that comes out to the Apples, is the driveway that you see there. The other thing I would indicate when talking about zoning is that as you go down Cleveland Street, they all vary back and forth along the way. And so that's why I don't think that, one, this is very extreme. Two, the problems that the neighbor have complained about will continue, and his complaint relative to an auto sales store, the auto sales store is going to stay there.
All right, that's good. Did we receive any other feedback from any of the other neighbors across the street there in that residential area as well, or on Longfellow across the street? Nope, nothing from there. Well, again, I think some of the major concerns around water flow, the paving, are things that we can address in design review, from my understanding. So I'm confident and comfortable, but of course that's up to the panel. But is there a motion to approve, or is there any conditions that would like to be added to that motion? I'm going to try to pull up the motion real quick.
A motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hubbard. So there's been a motion and second for the request to rezone a parcel from residential 2-household district to business general district. It's been motion properly second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right, motion carries. We have all yeas and one nay by Mr. Aiden. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the commission. Thank you.
Next, we have FGFF Rafa International, Inc., 700 Gulf Road, Elyria, Ohio, 44035, requesting for a conditional use permit for a child care and aftercare center. Start with the staff report.
Thank you. The proponent is requesting a conditional use to accommodate a proposed child care facility. Staff findings. The site is currently zoned residential medium-density district, the requirements of which can be located in Chapter 1144 of the Elyria Codified Ordinance. It is the purpose of a residential medium-density district to establish and maintain high-quality areas within the city for homes with a medium population density to preserve the existing residential neighborhoods characterized by single household residences. The principal permitted uses are as follows: agricultural, provided that such use is limited to non-commercial farming and crops and non-commercial animal husbandry, educational institutions, non-commercial recreation, religious places of worship, and single household detached dwelling units. RMD conditionally permitted uses. Section 1144.04 of the Residential Medium Density District governs conditionally permitted uses, of which the following uses are permitted: bed and breakfast establishments, planned unit development, residential planned unit developments, child care facilities, providing the following conditions substantially exist. Number one, the minimum lot area shall be 30,000 square feet, of which this lot does comply. The minimum lot frontage shall be 175 feet, of which it does. Number three, the minimum building setback shall be 50 feet from the front and side rear lot lines, of which it does. Number four, the minimum parking setback shall be 50 feet from the front property line and 30 feet from the side and rear, of which it is. Number five, in order to minimize any adverse impact on the surrounding residential properties, they should be placed to the extent as possible on the extremity of a single-family district if located on a local street, or on a major or arterial or collector street, of which it is. Number six, the play area shall be fenced in so as to provide a safe and secure environment for children. Unfortunately, I do not have a site plan of the proposed area, so this area I'm not sure of. Number seven, drop-off pickup should be located so as not to impede traffic safety, of which it is. Number eight, parking should be located as to avoid the necessity for parent and/or child crossing the street and access driveway. It is located in the back and does not have that particular concern. Staff findings continued. Conditional use permitted purpose. Chapter 1135 of the Elyria Codified Ordinance regulates the purpose of a conditional use and states the following: it is recognized that certain land uses pose characteristics of such unique and special nature relative to the location, design, size, method of operation, and circulation of each specific use must be considered individually. These specific uses, as they are conditionally permissible under this provision of the particular district regulations, shall follow the procedure and requirements set forth in this chapter. Specifically, Section 1135.03 of this section requires the following be considered for an approval of a conditional use permit. A, proposed use will be properly located in relation to the land use and streets of the city. B, the proposed use is necessary to serve the community's needs. C, the proposed use is adequately served by essential public facilities and services. D, the location, design, and operation of the proposed use at the specific location would not unduly discourage or interfere with surrounding uses and properties. And E, the proposed use meets the specific development conditions as specified in the regulations for the district in which it is located. Staff recommendations. After considering all the above items, staff recommends that the petition be approved as it meets many of the conditional uses 1 through 8 mentioned herein. Note, a separate commercial OBC application for the change of use and occupancy for the structure has yet to be submitted, indicating the proposed uses and occupant load for each new space in the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. Any questions for staff? Hearing none, are there any proponents? Pastor Gilmore, do you want to come up and give us an overview?
Mayor, Whitfield, Secretary, and members of the council or planning committee. Yes, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for entertaining our desire to change the use. We do have a site plan with a fence included. We realized that had to be put in. I am currently managing child care center in Lorraine. And we are looking to move those 150 children here. We have 27 staff, so we do have employment taxes that will come along with that, although it's a nonprofit child care center. We are working to make improvements to accommodate what's needed by the state for the regulations for the child care facility. So we are glad to be here and well and able. My contractor's here if you have any questions for him. But we are ready to move forward if we're approved.
Yeah. Thank you, Pastor Gilmore. So this is a pretty simple situation. You know, it's the former Northwood School building. They would like to do childcare and aftercare. And there's some, they're requesting a conditional use permit. I'm curious of what that entails in terms of, are we, you know, from my vantage point, there was literally just kids in here months ago. What type of constraints are we putting on someone who's now trying to do a similar thing with childcare? And is this covering what needs to be covered, or are we still putting on a lot of constraints? So I guess that's a question for you, from your experience, Pastor Gilmore, what you're planning and what type of restrictions or requirements we're putting on you to turn this into a child care place. And then I guess for Mr. Farkas as well, but I'll start with you, Pastor Gilmore.
Well, we were required to do survey, an additional survey, which did not include the land or the site survey we did through our appraisal. And so that took us back in time a little bit, but it was done. And then I think there are about 7 other things that were required for a conditional, giving you information on all of the owners who are adjacent to the property. There's like several conditions that they require. But my understanding was that it was educational initially, and so I didn't think all that was necessary until we got into the project and started submitting questions to the building permit and fire department and things like that. But I understand now that because it's a child care center, it is required to have a conditional use permit. So that's why we're here today, to get that approved so that we can move those kids. I have a busing schedule. I have kids that parents that are waiting to find out what's next, how soon, so that we can plan for our school year. We actually bus kids in and out of the center to their home schools. Right now in Lorraine, we're serving about 9 different schools. We also serve 2 of Illyria schools. And I have parents who are enrolled now waiting to find out if we're able to pick up those children who are living in Illyria. So we're ready to go forward.
Thank you, Pastor Gilmore. Are there any other restrictions or requirements that you'd like us to consider that may be currently in place due to this conditional use that you want us to consider as well?
I don't know. I know we have to do the fencing. I don't know how soon that has to go in place, considering that city Safety Town is on the property and it has a fenced area in it. So my question is, can that be used for our fenced area when it's not being used in the summer for Safety Town? We are currently operating Safety Town at the facility. So
That'll be a question from Mr.
if that can be
Farkas.
waived.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with the zoning code. The zoning code regulates uses, and unfortunately, the particular daycare, childcare is listed as a conditional use. It governs that controls it strictly so the panel can weigh in on what it's at. The location is prime. It meets the square footage. It meets 90% of what the zoning is looking for to do such a use. Now we'll switch to the building code for life safety. We have an existing school of certain existing elements, sprinkler system, it may have exit signage. Now we're coming in and proposing 3 different types of uses. If I recall, one is a church, which could change the occupant load or seating for egress, lighting requirements. The other is a daycare, which involves, per the code, fire alarm restrictions depending on age groups, exit door requirements for life safety, and I forget the third one.
Charter school.
A school, which it already is, which would not be a big deal. So from a building code standpoint, Once we receive drawings from their design professional showing us the use of each space, the occupant load, and what the intended flow is going to be of this building, I think they're halfway home. So from a zoning aspect, to me, I think it's a no-brainer. From a building code aspect, we just got to go through different requirements for life safety.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. And in regards to the fence, could you speak to that?
I'm sorry, the fence, without knowing exactly where this daycare is proposed and where the children are going to be placed, if the entire property is encompassed with the fence, it may meet that intent. But then again, I'm not sure. I haven't seen any drawings. So that would be more from a state regulatory aspect as far as containment of the children. We just want to make sure if a fence is installed, if it is off an emergency exit door, that no one's penned in, they can get out.
And you're saying that sort of oversight and regulation would be enforced by, at a next step after this, by what department in the city?
That would be on the plan submittal process and will also evoke design review from a little bit. Zoning, I don't see an issue happening, but it's more so from building code life safety.
Okay, thank you. Any other question for the proponent? Any question for the proponent? Thank you, Pastor Gilmore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, from the panel yep, you do have a question, Pastor. If you could step to the microphone, Pastor Gilmore, could you step back to the microphone?
I'm saying for the child care, well, right now, the child care center is not in the building. We are finishing up the safety requirements for the fire use and all of that. So we're still preparing the building for the children. But my question was, could we use the fencing that is there for Safety Town until we put up our fence, which is going to be, and it is on the site plans that we have to present to the building department. So that's my question. Can we use that fenced-in area for our children until we get a fence up? Problems now with materials and things are backed up, things are slow coming in, but it is our intention as a state requirement for the child care to have a separate fenced area for the children.
And Mr. Battle, our Safety Town was done this year at Northwood again. Oh, well, we did it this year at Northwood, yeah, so they're letting us use their space now until we come up with our own plan. Yep.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, please.
Again, we first have to start with the submittal of the application. That is first and foremost, because we're proposing in the eyes of the code a change of occupancy. So before anything's implemented, we would need to see that. Along with that will come a site plan showing us the area designated for the children. Then they can move on to the sub-permit of the fire alarm, which, by the way, we did receive, but we did not have an application attached with it, so I can't do
Yeah,
that.
I have that with me. I gave a lot of things to Colleen, and at the time, I was just submitting the things needed for the conditional permit. She said I didn't need
Right.
that for the conditional. So she just sent it up to your office. So I didn't know it had to go to your
You're
office.
okay. We
But
have it.
I have a whole packet of
Okay.
applications for you, which
So
I will.
I asked for clarity. The next step would be the commercial OBC application submittal. That is critical if we're to move forward in the positive direction of submittal. So if we can get that in with your drawings, we're on the right step.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the proponent? Okay, thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Are there any opponents? Any opponents? Any opponents? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the conditional use to accommodate the proposed child care facility and other uses as mentioned.
So moved.
Moved by, I heard a voice down here, Mr. Aiden. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Calvert. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. The next public hearing we have is for Kiora Distribution LLC, 1514 Lake Avenue, Elyria, Ohio, 44035. Request a rezone of multiple parcels located at 446 West 11th Street, Elyria, Ohio, from residential to household to business general district. This has been a case we saw at a previous meeting, and I'll let the secretary speak to when we had that meeting and what some of the feedback is, but we'll start the staff report.
Thank you.
Oh,
This
here
is
goes
a
the
request for rezoning of 41 parcels of land located at 446 11th Street, including that are currently zoned residential to household district. This is a revisit of the original request made on 2/2/21, case number 2021-10004. The case was denied, 1 in favor, 5 opposed. The proponent is requesting the multiple parcels, 41, be rezoned from residential to household district to a business general district in efforts of establishing a multi-tenant business / spaces within the existing building and provide a diverse use for the vacant land. Note, address 446 11th Street, parcel number 0626016102-014 is included with the request. Please refer to the proponent's map listing the specific parcels of interest. Findings, RTH. The parcels listed in the proponent's request are currently zoned residential to household district, the requirements of which can be located in Chapter 1148 of the Elyria Codified Ordinance. It is the purpose of a residential to household district, RTH, to establish and maintain high-quality areas within the city for 2 household dwellings with a high population density to preserve the existing residential neighborhoods characterized by both single and 2 household residences. The principally permitted uses are as follows: educational institutions, group homes as regulated in section 113710, non-commercial recreation, religious places of worship, single household detached dwellings, 2 household detached dwellings. The permitted accessory uses are as follows: any use customary and incidental to the permitted use, home occupations as regulated in section 113711, signs as regulated in chapter 1174. BG. The requirements of business general district can be found in the Elyria Codified Ordinance, Chapter 1160. It is the purpose of a business general to provide for a wide variety of needs for both convenience and more common and often reoccurring shopping goods and household services. The principally permitted uses include allied health facilities, automotive sales, child care facilities, clubs, commercial recreation, commercial schools, convenience businesses, dental medical clinics, drive-in facilities, educational institutes, fast food restaurants, financial institutions, government buildings, health unit offices, hospitals, hotels, motels, kennels, neighborhood retail businesses, non-commercial recreation, nursing, etc. Notes. As many of these parcels lack an address and are included with the overall request, a lot consolidation replat is needed as to assure 1 new parcel is assigned to this location. It should also be noted that the request is for rezoning of the parcels only and does not include any other reviews governing possible variances or design review. Staff recommendation. Since the Planning Commission meeting held on 1/21/21, multiple meetings have been held with the owner in efforts of fine-tuning the proposed permitted uses of the site via imposed deed restrictions in hopes of narrowing the actual permitted use function of the property, thus making it more cohesive for the surrounding area from a zoning perspective. Per our meetings, several uses were omitted, leaving multiple uses the proponent would like to keep as part of the zoning request. I had listed the uses discussed per my recollection from the board's use, but must note some of the uses chosen are not characteristic of preserving the existing residential district as described in the RTH purpose section listed herein. Note, the items struck are not proposed. Number 2, the items underlined and italicized are still proposed, but are open for discussion per the proponent. Open to discussion is commercial recreation, fast food restaurants, kennels, research and development, and veterinarian hospital and animal hospital. This cooperative effort, was designed to delicately adjust the proposed zoning district to minimize the impact for some permitted uses for the surrounding residential. But some uses requested by the owner, underlined and italicized, do not fit the proposed area in which they are located. The above information listed is for the board's use and consideration, as the board must weigh the requirements currently established in the pre-existing residential district in regards to the limited uses permitted, as a zoning change, if approved, would allow the permitted uses listed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. So again, this is Franklin Elementary Building. We looked at this back in January of this year, and the board shared many concerns that we had around the proposed uses and wanting to be respectful of that neighborhood, the fact that this was tucked in there. We recommended some things be taken out and to actually table, and we were going to come up with another way. But the proponent at the time recommended that we go ahead and vote, and based on where we were, we declined it with one voting in support of. So they've come back and they've scratched out a couple of the uses here, and thank you, Mr. Farkas, for highlighting those, and then also underlining the ones that it sounds like they said are open for discussion. But is there any proponent here? Are they here? I saw Mr. Coco here. Is there any? Okay. Is there a motion to table this matter? Moved by Mr. Aiden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hubbard. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Only thing we have left is design reviews that the staff have done. If there's no other business, Dawn did have an update she wants to share, and then we'll go ahead and adjourn.
We had discussed at the last Planning Commission meeting that the staff would be reviewing the cabinet signs language so that we, as we continue to get more and more exceptions requested through Planning Commission on that. Unfortunately, we've had many staff, well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, many of the staff people have been out on vacation, so we actually have not had a chance to convene as staff to provide that report to you.
So we'll try to address that at the next Planning Commission meeting, which will be in person. I believe I just saw August 3rd, 2021. Hearing no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Tedros. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Aiden. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank y'all. Good to see you in person.